Westbury has given...
Going.
Sorry, that was a bit of technical hitch. My name's Richard Mansell. I'm the Deputy Chair of the Waikanae Community Board and have been asked to chair it in James Westbury's absence or lateness tonight. He anticipates being in about 8 o'clock, but things may change. So welcome everybody to this last meeting of our community board in this triennium.
Don't we have another one on the 4th?
Do we?
Actually in person, I think.
Do we?
Chair.
Golly, okay. My apologies for getting that wrong.
I think that's correct.
You can all come and see me if you want. Apologies, I notice everyone but James is here. Have we got any other apologies, Tracy?
I haven't received any.
Okay.
Do we want to accept James' apologies for lateness?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Move in a second.
I'll move that.
Thanks, Jocelyn.
I can second it, just to keep things going.
Excuse me, Richard, sorry to interrupt, but I think it's important to be clear on whether or not this is the last meeting of the triennium. Kate, are you able to confirm, please? I thought it was the last one.
Yes, it is on. I was just checking, sorry. It appears that it is the last meeting of the triennium for the Waikanae Community Board.
Oh, sorry. I thought, okay, maybe I've got muddled up with another meeting. Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you want to put that resolution? Or...
Yes, please put the resolution that James Westbury's apologies for lateness be accepted. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Declarations of interest on items on the agenda. Has anybody got any they wish to make?
No.
No, not me. Tonchi?
No.
Michelle?
No.
Oh, okay. Right, public speaking time. Have we got anybody lined up for public speaking, Tracy? Yes.
Yes, we've got Maria McKee. Now, I did think I saw her in the list, but now I don't see her. Oh, she was the one that might be having technological problems.
Yeah. Yes, she has emailed me a statement that she wishes me to read out.
Okay.
I've forwarded that to the other community board members. Have you got any objections to me reading that?
No.
No? Okay, I'll read it then. My name is Maria McKee. My husband and I bought the Waikanae Butchery in January 2020 and we employ 7 staff. We bought our house in Waikanae in November 2020. In February this year, the butchery received a letter advising that work on the revocation of State Highway 1 would start on the 14th of February. Work started on the 7th of February when they started removing the wall. New Zealand Herald reported 28 February, quotes, a Fletcher spokesman said, a key area outside the Waikanae shops is now underway. We were full of hope that this early start would mean the scheduled completion date mentioned in the article of mid-year would be met. It is now 6th of September and the progress on the area outside the shop has been stopped for a while. Work has continued and even started elsewhere on State Highway 1. As a business owner, having a 6-foot fence in front of your shop for 7 months is not at all appealing or inviting to customers. This is impacting all businesses along the section with the fence. The shop next door to us has closed. We have received 1 letter in February and 2 visits from Higgins. The latest Waka Kotahi newsletter of 5 September doesn't even mention the area outside the shops. Then she's got a quote, Te Moana Road to New World Waikanae. Most of the concreting works have been completed and progress is being made on the new traffic light installation. Planting and line marking are planned for early October and once completed, the new lights will go live. That's the end of the quote. A rumour is circulating that the part outside the shops will not be finished till after Christmas. We are totally frustrated with the lack of progress and the lack of communication from them. As a business owner, we understand the impact of COVID, staff shortages, supply issues. However, this does not mean you are not able to communicate with the community. It appears they only provide brief updates to the Waikanae Community Board prior to a meeting. We are also disappointed in the lack of communication from the Kāpiti Coast District Council and the Waikanae Community Board. We have received no correspondence from them on the subject. To hide behind it's a Waka Kotahi project is not good enough when it is affecting local businesses and local ratepayers. We feel the Waikanae Community Board and our local councillor have not been as proactive as it could have been with businesses and the community. We would have appreciated a visit by any of the community board members or our local district councillor. Even during election time, we have not had anyone come in. Businesses and the local community deserve better. We are extremely frustrated at how slow this whole project has been and feel the community has been ignored. I understand Waka Kotahi are at this meeting and I would like to ask them one question. What month will the work in front of the shops be finished? Now, I don't propose to put that onto Waka Kotahi at the moment because they're going to talk to us later, but we'll be answering that question or asking that question then, and hopefully we'll get a satisfactory answer. As the chair, interim, acting, I can certainly feel for this, and as a Waikanae resident, I can understand and I appreciate that it's been extremely difficult for the last 7 months. The fence has been up with no work being done in that area seemingly for months. And if the communication as outlined is correct, then it doesn't seem satisfactory to me. But I think that's about all we can do at the moment, unless others want to have a say. I'll certainly, we can bring this up with Waka Kotahi later, I think. Michelle, anything?
No, I think we just raise questions later on, Richard, from one.
Yep.
Yeah, so, sorry, Michelle. So I saw some chatter on Facebook, I think it was yesterday, what's today? Maybe it was yesterday. And I actually ran Mr. O'Connor about this. And I suppose, even though this is a Waka Kotahi job, half of it's paid for by KCDC. And so I'd like to hear from KCDC how, you know, basically the relationship and how, you know, this is the second meeting now that we're having exactly the same conversations. And I suppose later on finding out when the work is going to be done. And yeah, so if I can have some comments from council staff on this, please. I don't think Mr. O'Connor is present.
No.
So through you, Mr. Chair, prior to Mike perhaps chipping in, I did raise this back in Q2 this year, and we did discuss it. It became an item on matters under urgency on the community board minutes. Mike, there has been correspondence since we raised this topic, and my specific request was what communication to the business community was going to be forthcoming. Can you just refresh our memories on what, if any?
I'm struggling to remember, Tonsi. I recall the exchange. I recall being in contact, I think, with Glenn Prince from Waka Kotahi. Can I just say that we do have Jacob on from Waka Kotahi, so I was going to suggest that maybe we could have this discussion in the agenda later on. And in the meantime, if you like, I'll see if I can text Glenn and see if I can get some comment from him in the meantime.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. I'd just like to welcome Maria McKee into the meeting. I've read your letter, Maria, and we've talked about it. And we are going to ask the Waka Kotahi person when we talk to him in our agenda about the items you have raised, and hopefully you can get some, or stay on that long and get some answers. But it's fair to say that it's an issue that we have been trying to deal with for the last few months and not really succeeding. So hopefully we can get some better answers to the questions tonight. But welcome. Right.
So if I can just ask a question, following up on Mike's comment, I was just checking the minutes of our last meeting. We don't seem to have our minutes of our last meeting to see what was actually agreed, the course of action that was to be agreed. Are they available? I take it they're not available. Have they not been approved, Tracy?
They're on the at the back of
They're on the
It's only
agenda.
July. It's
the
only
agenda.
July. It's July, and haven't we had one since then?
No,
No,
Or okay, so where in the minutes does it talk about the what Kotahi was going to actually say then or do?
It's under public speaking on page 1 of their minutes and the second paragraph. And it's quite short.
So we extended an invitation for the Waka Kotahi reps to come back to this meeting to provide a further update, which they have done.
Okay, so in here, apologies for not seeing that. It's got here. So Mr. Laird undertook to provide the board with a fortnightly update via the board secretary. So I don't know if I don't believe I've actually seen any updates. I'm just wondering, Tracy, if he actually forwarded them to you.
no, I haven't received anything from them.
Right. Okay.
Jake is on the call, maybe you can talk to that later on.
Okay. Okay. Cute.
anybody else want to discuss anything that comes out of Maria McKee's letter to us? Or
Actually,
statement?
so I actually have, are you? Do you there? Oh, she is there. She's, can you hear me, Marie?
Marie, I think you're on mute.
She is unmuted, but for some reason the audio is not coming through.
Right, and the camera's off as well.
No,
Okay, well,
camera's
Marie-
on. I can see her.
Maria, is the volume turned up on your device?
Okay, it'll be a settings thing for Maria. So
Maria, you may be able to, where it says mute down the bottom, it has a little arrow and you may be able to press that and it should have the option to select a microphone. The little, if you've got.
we're getting close. There's actually a little microphone on there.
Oh yes, here we are, maybe.
And you can select there might be microphone array or a jack mic or no.
Internals usually.
Now?
I heard you.
Yes.
Yep, it's going green now.
Okay,
Perfect.
great.
Awesome.
So thank you, Maria, for taking the time to write us the border letter, which obviously Waka Kotahi is going to have heard today. I'm just interested to know how many lots of communication you've had with either them or maybe the contractors since February when the work started?
We have only received one letter, and that was at the beginning of February, advising that the works will start on the 14th. We've had a couple of visits from the Higgins contractors earlier on. My husband has kind of tried to speak to some of the contractors outside, but they themselves don't necessarily know what is happening.
Yeah.
And that is it.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll hear, hopefully you can stay and we can hear a bit more an answer to some of your comments and your questions.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle, you got a question?
I just wanted to check with the other board members. My recollection was that all the works on that section of the State Highway were going to be completed by the end of September, and that there was a commitment from NZTA to go and meet in person all the businesses following the last meeting.
Yeah.
I think it's best probably so when we do talk to I think it's Jacob, we can ask him those questions directly.
For you, Chair, this could be the never-ending story tonight. I think what the important thing is that, Maria, thank you, you brought this front of mind. Not that we haven't been thinking about it and trying to peel the layers of actually what's going on there and how businesses are being affected, but let's hear from the Transport Agency, and then let's put some checks and balances on how we're going to move forward between now and the end of the year, because I can't personally see that it's going to be completed by the end of September. And the important thing is to have a update at least fortnightly, monthly, with the affected parties, the business owners, not too dissimilar to how we treated Mahara Place redevelopment.
And that worked well.
Indeed.
Michelle?
Oh, can I ask Maria as well? Obviously that's that high fencing, Maria. Are there some other options in terms of practical things that will be better if we requested like lower fencing or something else, just to make it a little bit more appealing if they do delay it?
Yes, I think lower fencing. I'm not sure why there is the high fencing there. The wall itself was low. So yes, that could be a possibility. Yeah.
Thank you.
If there's no other public waiting to speak, Tracy, I will move on.
No, there aren't any other members of the public waiting to speak.
Okay, we'll move to item number 5 on our agenda, members' business. Public speaking time responses, I think we've done that. Leave of absence, given this is the last meeting of the triennium, is probably not important. Matters of an urgent nature, I'm not aware of any. James may have been given some by members. No. And community board activities, I think we might just jump that and then go and talk to the interesting people. I see that Jacob's there from Waka Kotahi, so perhaps if it's all right with everyone else, we'll move on to 7.2, because I understand from Mike the police are not here. So we'll just jump to 7.2 and let Waka Kotahi have their say in their defence. So welcome, Jacob.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. Yeah. So firstly, Maria, I sympathise with your communication, and I thank you for raising that with the board this evening. Look, I'm not necessarily sure if it's a defence, but certainly in terms of an update and some reasonings for the delays to date through the project, I'm more than happy to provide. On the back of the last meeting, I agreed to enter out into the Waikanae community and touch base with as many businesses as I can. Unfortunately, I couldn't get around them all. But Maria, I did meet with your husband alongside James from Higgins, and we stood roadside and had a discussion for best part of 25 minutes. And his feelings and opinions were not too dissimilar from what you communicated in writing. And I apologise for that. This has been a very complicated project, and it doesn't help that the staging of it is spread. It also doesn't necessarily help that we've got a contractor that's under a lot of stress through illness, lack of personnel. But also I completely acknowledge your point around the disruption that has caused to your business, particularly from a road frontage point of view, pedestrian traffic point of view, and I believe at one stage it could have been a flooding point of view as well. What I can say is that the wall was pulled down early so we can get some road surveying done. Where it was is where the cycle lane and road edge of curb is going to be, and unfortunately through delays in the contract, that particular part through there hasn't been completed as soon as we'd like. A positive that I can say is that our contractor is moving through this phase now. And although I committed to the 27th of September in the last meeting, everyone that lives in the area would be aware that the weather has been horrible in the last 6 weeks, and which will have an impact on the program. And unfortunately, we're now looking at a completion date of about 4 weeks on top of the 27th of September, so pushing out towards the end of October. So that will be a completion of all works through Waikanae, and I hope that we hit that target. We've got to give the contractor an opportunity now, and we're just going to continue to work towards that. On top of visiting some of the other businesses, we've increased our communications through the newsletter, and we've also reached out to the library as requested with a poster, including imagery of what the clip-on bridge is going to look like when we complete it. We've also took on board the comments about the traffic management delays that those using that T1 intersection were experiencing. And we've put it in a temporary roundabout, albeit painted on the road. It is what seems to be operating a lot better in terms of the effects that traffic or those using that intersection were experiencing. And yeah, that's in terms of the physical works. We're moving further away from the bridge now. My colleague will speak to that later on in the call. But over the next 4 to 6 weeks, we hope to be finished and entering into a defects period, which takes us through to the same time next year. I'm happy to take some more questions and on top of that.
Tonchi, you thumbs up or got a hand up?
I've got a hand up.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
You can talk then.
I pushed the wrong icon. Thanks, Jacob. What was the original program duration?
I wasn't around at the time. Unfortunately, I came in at a time where we were looking at a program completion date of the 27th of June. That was for the revocation from zones 1 right through to 8A, which finished just past New World. With the amount of variations that had been added to the program on top of the contract works, we had to do a program reevaluation because as I'm sure you can appreciate, when you've got a set period of works, adding variations on top of that, it was appearing unrealistic that the contractor would be able to achieve the contract works and the variations with the date that was prescribed. Hence why we now landed on the 27th of September. Since then, the weather's just been atrocious, and we've awarded some wet weather days, which take us through to the end of October.
27th of June. So did the original program account for inclement weather, winter works, and our COVID era, where most businesses are experiencing a lot of sicknesses and absenteeism? So I guess what I'm trying to ask the transport agency and also Mike Council is, sometimes it's better to delay things, looking to future work, because there is future work, isn't there? Rather than boxing on middle of winter, not achieving a program. Why would we do that?
Yeah, you raise a good point. There's a bit of pressure on the agency to undertake and complete the revocation. and we did look at the program. There were some ceiling works that were planned that we did push out to this coming season. But you're correct. I mean, there are some works that went ahead that anyone could argue could have been completed without inclement weather affecting them in the summertime. But we've managed to still achieve a lot. And I think on the back of making that decision to carry on, had we have not, we'd still possibly be working our way through Waikanae towards Christmas, right through potentially into the new year. So what we did achieve in that period of time outside of the wet weather days, I think was the right call.
Tonchi, I think, I know it's tough, but I think we have some sympathy, a degree of sympathy for Waka Kotahi. Stopping and starting, whilst it seemed attractive, it's actually quite expensive because you got to do the PNG again, and you've got those fixed costs that you have to pay for twice. So, and the disruption that you have to do twice. So, I think sometimes it's a line call, but you know, it's Hobson's choice really. Do you stop and potentially disrupt twice, or do you crack on and just do it once? So,
I'm not suggesting a stop and starting. I'm actually suggesting delaying it entirely because. Just that, you know, we're in an awkward place right now. Well, we have been for the past 24 months, even more so in the last 12 months. So, yeah, it's a moot point, really. I mean, we're causing a lot of damage to businesses in Mahara, particularly on the Old State Highway, and I guess what I'm trying to flag is, you know, how can it be avoidable, and next tranche of work, can we sort of look at it better?
Yeah, well, it certainly wasn't with ill intent, Tonchi. We're really trying our hardest to get out of Waikanae and get out well. The contract in particular has had a really heavy hit with a loss of personnel. It's a robbing Peter to pay Paul industry at the moment, and the contract is really struggling to keep people, and we're trying our hardest as a client as well to understand that and work with them on that.
But you can see what I'm trying to, you know, I keep cutting to the bone. Sometimes, you know, it's nice to have improvements and enhancements, and I know it's got to come, because it's part of the revocation process, but I'm trying to be deliberate here. Possibly we pick a worse time to try to do this work when actually businesses are suffering over and above this project going ahead at all. So we haven't helped ourselves, have we, at all?
I think I understand where you're coming from. I think that's a decision. The decision to push the project from a start date, bearing in mind the Ministry of Transport has some obligations around revocation as well. You know, that's above my decision-making ability. I just took the project from, you know, through the construction phase. But certainly you raise some points around timing and you know, planning of works around particularly communities in times such as the last 3 years, with what we've all experienced together. I hear you on that one.
Shell, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a little bit more about the variations you mentioned to the contract.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could you just expand on what you meant by that?
Oh yeah, sure. So this general construction, we expect that in every contract that's let, you have a scope of works that are based on a design, which is informed by known and tested means. But certainly when the contractor gets on site and may dig a hole, for example, and find some services that are not shown on the drawings, that becomes a variation to manage those services, for example, whether they need to come out, they need to be moved, they may be struck accidentally, and that becomes a time variation for a contractor as well. So it's just what we expect day to day, and it's managed properly through an independent channel. Yeah, unfortunately, on this project, there has been a number of them.
Can you just give us some? So the ones you just described, are they specific to this project or general?
Yes. An example of that would be in Zone 6, just outside of Waikanae. In the last fortnight, heading south, we struck some asbestos pipes that weren't shown on the drawings. So the contractor has an obligation under the Health and Safety Act to remove the asbestos or to tidy it up, and that becomes a variation as they they were not shown on the drawing. They had not made an allowance to remove those, and therefore the variation was awarded.
So just so we're clear, so these are assets that are NZTA assets that should be shown on their asset database.
Negative. They were coming from private property into the state highway, so they were. I mean, asbestos piping is very old and redundant. I can't say where they were exactly coming from or where they were heading to, but they were there. Yeah.
And then my other one was a practical one, in terms of, obviously you're saying you're going to get the works done in 4 to 6 weeks, and I don't know whether you were listening. I was just asking for some how you can make it look better while the contractors are out there working. And we talked about a lower fence being one option, just so the business is a little bit more visible. Is that something you can work with contractors for?
Yeah, the fences are a prescribed height, and they're hired fences anyway, and the contractor has gone and procured them, obviously to protect the pedestrians from the open area. I did speak with Terry McKee about how he'd like us to help in that respect, and at that particular point he didn't take up our offer to maybe provide some additional signage or but look, Maria, if there's anything we can do within the next 4 to 6 weeks additional, I'm happy to make that opportunity available again. And I hope he recalls that, because I did specifically bring that up with him at the time.
So I guess sorry, for the one further one, I guess any of those costs in my mind shouldn't be borne by the business.
No, I wasn't expecting the business to bear those costs.
Okay.
When I made the agreement that I'll come visit some businesses in the last meeting, I did that on the basis that I would potentially have some costs that come out of that, so that, you know, I heard the same issues in the last meeting as Maria wrote down in her communication to the board, and I was going with the olive branch of trying to help. And look, I'm more than happy to extend that further if and meet with yourself and Terry again, Maria, and others along the stretch. I met with people at the bookshelf. There was I called into a couple of real estate agencies. There's one particular business that I wanted to call into, but she had customers at the time, which I think it was a fabric shop closer to the gas station. I'm more than happy to come back along the stretch again, Maria, and meet with yourself and Terry. More than happy to.
Okay,
I just if you don't mind, as a business owner myself, if I take my Waka Kotahi hat off, I completely sympathise with what was communicated to the board, and where I can help, I will. As I said earlier, this work doesn't come with bad intent. We really are here to provide a quality product, and it's unfortunate it's taken a lot longer than we had anticipated. But I'll be back in town next week, and I'll be able to help.
Is it possible to, when you go along and talk to these people, to take a set of plans and explain exactly what is yet to come? Because it sounds like you're doing quite a bit of work right in front of Maria's shop and the shops along there. And it's often better if they can be explained what's happening, and then possibly, you know, almost a site-specific timeline for it. People aren't unreasonable. They will, if they can see a light there at the end of the tunnel and things are explained to them, they'll generally get on and live with it. It's the communication void that is often the thing that annoys people the most. So if you could take some plans and show them exactly what you're doing, because it sounds like there's still quite a bit of work to do there.
Yeah, that's a great point, Richard. There is a bit of work to do there, and we are making our way through the area. I think I've been a little bit reluctant to specifically prescribe timelines for certain sections, as I mean, the contractors, if a contractor crew is hit with flu like they were last week, then we lose our concrete contractor for that week. And if I was to prescribe a particular date for contract through an area when crews are hit so heavily by flu, I just don't want to disappoint. Hence why we're coming through in bigger blocks and trying to get work done in that fashion. But I certainly, to your point, I can take some drawings through and have a more visual approach to the communications I have with those business owners.
Thanks. Jocelyn?
Thank you, Jacob, for fronting up again and
No problem.
answering all these questions. So there were some questions to Michelle in terms of the variations, but the question I have about them is how long, given all the variations or the number of variations that has occurred, how much extra time has that added to the job?
Well, when I first got onto the project late May, early June, it hadn't added any, but it had added a financial element to the contract. What we realized though is that, and I'll give an example here, if the contractor had 100 days to complete the job, but we put 50 variations in front of them, with the same crew, it's unrealistic that they would complete the variation work and the contract works within the 100 days. And unfortunately, there was no time allocated to those variations. And we picked up on that and had a sit down with the contractor and our engineers to contract and put a time allocation against the approved variations to date, which took us through to the 27th of September. And in fairness to the contractor, the amount of pressure that was on them to complete, it was not foreseeable that was going to happen. So we got together as a group, understood what we needed to work towards in terms of a time extension and applied it. It's just unfortunate that since then the wet weather has carried us through and it's going to take us past that date into October.
So what you're saying is the variations haven't actually caused a great length of time, but you were saying that for May you hadn't actually allocated any time to variations when you said that was a normal course of work.
Well, it depends. I mean, I'm not the engineer to contract. That's an independent advisor that allocates the finance and the time with each variation. So I can't talk to whether or not the time allocation was approved or disallowed. Certainly, the contractor may have applied for it, but there's an element of the contract that remains independent. And I, as a client and the bill payer in this instance, am the one that I can't interfere with that independent process.
Okay. Okay. So I suppose really, regardless of variations and staff sickness, which, these things happen. And I know that Mike made the comment about this project, stopping and starting costs money, but there's also the element of probably a lot, well, I don't know how much, but a lot of money that has been removed from businesses' tills because of all this work. And, I think that has to be taken into consideration, particularly, coming out of COVID and all the other issues they have to deal with as well.
Well, you raise a good point, Jocelyn. And I wish I could answer that in its full capacity on this call. What I would suggest, though, is that if the community wants to come together and succinctly put forward that in writing to Waka Kotahi, we would receive that and certainly make. We would follow that up. I just can't comment on that from a project perspective.
Yeah. So getting down to tin tax, then I know, for example, with businesses in COVID, and I'm not sure how this worked to last year, but basically if you actually were able to show that your income had dropped by X amount, maybe a year earlier or a certain time frame earlier, then that would be a worthwhile exercise for those businesses to do.
Again, if the Waikanae Community Board would like to succinctly put forward something like that to Waka Kotahi, I'm sure it would be received.
Right.
But I can't comment as to how that would be.
Okay. Well, appreciate you that offer. So the other thing too, I suppose, is I know I probably laboured this point last time when we had this conversation, is that the whole area looks like a construction zone, and it was. And I think things have probably actually improved south of Timawana Road to the rail bridge, but I comment about doing things in sections rather than actually having the whole stretch as being a construction zone, so that some areas are actually left for a really long period of time. Work is happening somewhere else, but it's still that disruption to those individual businesses. And I know it might cost more money, but you've got, it's weighing out that the costs of it to the individuals who are being impacted as well. and about planning the work so that it's done in the most pragmatic way for the people who are impacted, and it may not necessarily be the best for for the contractors. I don't know, or whether there's a balance in the middle.
Yeah, there's definitely some lessons to be learned here, 100%. And there's going to be a revocation for PPTO that follows this, heading further north. So the lessons learned from this project will be taken forward. Certainly, as an example, that the contract, the concrete works that are part of this job is immense, right through from Zone 1 right through to Zone 8A in Waikanae. And the concrete crew won't come for 2 driveways in a short section of path, hence why we need to open up and prepare fairly large sections for these crews to come in and do big pours. To that degree, and I circle back to the weather, we open up those areas and we prep, but the weather unfortunately then comes along and upsets that prep. We can't pour in the rain, and to your point, we've got large sections open for extended periods of time. In terms of the wall and the areas in front of Maria and Terry's shop, admittedly, it's likely that upon review of that could have been planned a lot better, and I've apologized for that.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Because I've actually got some information, and someone else will probably talk about the next phase from the Waikanae River Bridge, but we'll get to that later. So I suppose my other comment, and I suppose going forward, this project is going to continue for another 6 weeks or so, is to have a surety that through Tracy that the board would actually be getting these updates as well, or getting updates as to what's going on, and what the delays are, what improvements have been made, and basically what's going on, so we don't have to second guess what's going on. I think
sure.
be appreciated.
I apologise if there was some ambiguity around the commitments I was going to make in terms of updates last time. I certainly made an effort with visiting local shops and through the library for our elderly citizens as was requested, but I seem to have dropped the ball on the updates through to the board. So moving forward, between now and practical completion towards the end of October, I'll put a commitment that fortnightly I'll provide an update, and hopefully that comes with enough information to keep you all in the loop. Sure.
Right.
Okay. Thank you,
Michelle.
I just wanted to suggest that one of the community board members joins Jacob when he visits his businesses. I'm happy to try and make myself available as much as possible if anybody else wants to suggest.
Great idea, Michelle.
If you have the time, Michelle, that would be great. I'm currently in the one busy period of time that I have in my life annually, so I can't make it, but if you could, that'd be great. Has anybody got anything else? Josh, on your hand still up?
Oh, sorry, I'll remove that. I know this is not quite normal, but I'm just wondering whether through the chair you would like to ask Maria if she's got any further questions or comments.
I'm happy for Maria to ask a question if she's got one or two, but I think Jacob's committed to come back and visit her, so that might be better.
Yeah.
Yes, a thumb up or a thumb down, Maria? Down? Okay, yep.
Okay,
So,
excellent.
Right, okay,
Thank
well
you.
that's Waka Kotahi. Probably linked with that, but also linked with the car parking changes associated with Mahara Gallery as the town centre working group, and I assume that's Alison.
So thank you, Jacob.
Thanks, Jacob. Yeah, it was what.
Thanks for the invitation. Could I kindly ask Richard if Maria's okay, if I could have their contact details so I could specifically set up a catch up at a time that suits? I don't want to show up when herself or Terry aren't available or busy.
Yep. Tracy, have you got the contact details you can forward to Jacob?
I could do so.
Yeah, we can manage that.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, actually through the chair again, Richard, I've just realised that this project's due to finish at the end of October. Some of us may not be around this council table, around the community board table then, But so can I ask Tracy that she keeps the members of the board who are still there, so they've got some a continuous, I suppose, oversight for this project, please?
Sure. As I receive updates, I'll certainly forward them on to board members.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
And one of us will get back in because there's only 6 positions, and
Yep, you're right.
math says that time she's going to get back in. Okay, so we've got reports to us. The first one is 6.1, car parking changes associated with Mahara Gallery. And I assume that's why Alison is here. Is she the author? Yes, she is. So perhaps we can move to Alison. But Alison, while you're here, are you also our contact person for, was it 7.3, updated of the town centre working group?
Kia ora, everyone. No, we have members of the Town Centre iwi working group online
okay.
ready to talk to that.
Oh, well, maybe we could go to them so they're not hanging around. Is that all right, Alison? Or
That would be great, I think. Thank you.
I'll shuffle you sideways. And is that Simon? And Kia ora, Simon.
There's Ra there as well.
Kia ora, can you hear us?
We can hear you.
Oh, beautiful. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Ko Anne-Marie Alison Takuingoa.
Oh, yes.
This is Simon that I have next to me, and Rafiri Higgett here at the end. And we've got apologies from Tracy Morgan, who is the designer of Te Ara Tangata. Unfortunately, she's not been able to make it due to family circumstances. So thank you for letting us have this very valuable time, and hopefully this is a really exciting taki for you to listen to or to be involved in for what could be or what is the last meeting for your community board. I'm going to take our submission as being read. Would you like me to read this, or are you happy for this as being read?
I think we've all read it and happy for it to be taken as read.
Fabulous. So in the last page, you would have seen in the last paragraph that we hope that this submission has provided the context and history of our request, and that it will be carefully considered. And we'd like to also offer you the opportunity to ask us any questions. I understand that there was some questions that came back through Tracy, however, they haven't reached us. So perhaps if you do have any questions, we'll try our very best to answer them for you.
Right. Anybody else want to start? No? Okay, I will. Thanks for the paper, and it was really interesting, and I think it's important that we reflect our history for the district. And I just wonder if you have any idea of who Mr. or Mrs. Frater was. I think you mentioned that it was a doctor. I just wonder if you've got any background onto that and why it was named Frater Lane. Presumably he didn't own land there, but if you had any details, that might be useful.
Yeah, kia ora, Richard. It's Ra. Yeah, how you going?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. And hello to the rest of your members there, Jocelyn and Michelle and Tonchi, is it?
Yep.
Okay, and hi, Alison. Yeah, well, we were hoping that the Kāpiti Coast District Council would be able to find some history on this Dr. Frater, but unfortunately they don't seem to have any history about this person. All I know is that he had a practice in Waikanae as a doctor, but then there were other doctors there as well, like Dr. Was one that I can remember as a child having to see. But as far as Dr. Frater, don't have any. There's no history about this person in council and how the name came about.
Thank you. Has anybody else got any questions?
I think I suppose the point we want to make, Richard, is that this is a right of way from the marae
To the Urapa, yeah.
Urapa. And it's very significant, that right of way. In fact, it was a road, and we used to drive vehicles through there from State Highway 1 and park on the northern side of the marae, and did that for many, many years until the taking of our land by the Hawhawhenua District Council to make a township, the local township there now. So, but that right of way has always been our right of way to the Urapa from the marae. So I think it's quite fitting that the name is changed to something that signifies our pathway to the Urapa, and that's why we want the name changed, because it's significant, that right of way, for our people and for the next generations and those after. And also it also acknowledges those trustees, those first trustees of the marae, because some of them are actually whakapapa to the cemetery and actually buried over in the cemetery as well.
Right. I'm certainly aware of my short-term history of 57 years in Waikanae, that that the lane was always there. When the wall was built, they had to leave a gate in so that you could take your is it tupuna?
Yeah, tūpapaku.
Tūpapaku.
Oh, right, sorry. Trying. And I also believe that you had the right to stop the trains. Yeah, so I know that the vague history, not the full history, but the vague history, and it's history like that needs to be preserved and enhanced and explained and celebrated. So it's a great idea, but if we agree with your request, then what's the chance that we're upsetting somebody else? And that's why I'd like to know the details, and I might ask a few people around that may know who Dr. Frater was. But I suspect that you, Ra, have got more local knowledge than anyone. So we may not find anything. I also point out that there is when we got the paper, we asked a few questions about what the process was, and there is actually a full-blown process that we have to go through. So the council officers will need to prepare a paper outlining what our options are before we can actually make any decision. But I think from tonight we can ask for that paper to be drawn.
Can I ask why that wasn't done earlier?
Well, I only got this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The officers
no, late last week, sorry.
Yeah.
So my understanding is that, sorry, Richard, Anne-Marie here,
Yep.
as part of the process with the work at Town Centre Working Group and the group that we work in and have been sitting in Town Centre Working Group since 2014, part of that process is to have an officer's report. We weren't aware of that, and so our group met today, and there is an undertaking that will be followed through. In fact, it's already in action now for that to be that process to be followed through, and for that report to be made available, unfortunately, to the new community board members, whoever may be sitting there. And with that, there will also be letters of support as well. We've also included letters of support from Atiawa Ki Wakarongotai Charitable Trust. We've got letters of support from the local marae, from Takamori Urapa, and also from Rua Kohatu Urapa, which of course is across the road. We've also sought support from the only landowner in Frater Lane, Mr. Young, and he's supportive of this as well. We wish that we could send you or share with you a rich history of what Freighter Lane and how it was named, but unfortunately there's nothing that we can find. We've also, through secretariat support through our group, we've not managed to find anything even through library records. So we really have tried very hard. In fact, the only thing that we've found available through any internet or any research is a photograph of Dr. Freighter from the 1960s. And so we really have tried very hard to bring you the rich history of what that may be. But what we also wanted to share with you is the rich history of what it was before Freighter Lane. And as part of the Town Centre Working Group upgrade, Te Ara Tangata is the paving that has been laid down that takes our tūpāpako, sends them off on their last journey over to Ruakoha to Urupā. And so from there, we felt that it would be appropriate to, if you felt and supported this as a community board, for that to be renamed as Te Ara Tangata.
Right, yep. Michelle?
Yeah, can I just check in terms of your research on history, have you spoken with the Historical Society?
We did talk about that today, and I think we're looking into that for you now.
Thank you.
Jocelyn?
Yes, thank you. So thank you for coming along to talk here. So I'm just wondering, I've actually probably found the same photographs that you had, Mr. A.S. Freighter, and I see that he's sitting next to a Goodman. So I'm wondering whether or not they would have any information about this. So this is in 1966, and he looked, you know, he looked older there. It looks like he was born, I think he may have been English.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I suppose, so it's actually relatively recent history that this was actually named in by the looks of things, not actually that, you know, that long ago. So,
I recall that I've seen the photograph that you're looking at, Jocelyn. It's a great photo. And I'm thinking that he was quite, he was in his later years, maybe in his 70s in that photograph. So I think that that his practice in Waikanae would have been a lot earlier than the 60s, maybe even going back, and we're not sure. We have no history, but we have certainly tried as part of this process. As I said, we've been working with council since 2014.
oh, really?
We've not found anything at all. And also, as I said earlier, there was a history, and there was a culture, and there was peoples there before Freighter. So we're just asking you to have some consideration around the request and the submission that we've put forward.
So yeah, so I'm quite happy to consider that, and obviously we've got to wait for a paper, but I'll just go on left field here. I do genealogy, and I when we're done here, I will check in Ancestry and see if I can find him, or if he's got any family members here, if you like.
Great. As far as we're aware, we haven't managed to find any family members in New Zealand, but our research might not be as in-depth as yours is, Jocelyn, so that would be great.
Yeah, if we both come up with the same answer, that's probably useful as well. Okay.
I assume you're looking in the Rotary Club of Waikanae.
Yeah.
Charter members 1966. I noticed Barry Cleveley is still there. I could ask him.
Yeah.
So that's okay. Yeah. So that there's a Goodman next door to that person. So some of these associates might have.
Yeah. There's a few people.
Ideas. Yes. Oh, good.
But the thing is what you're going to come up with, I would imagine, is that okay, so he was a doctor here in Waikanae. Yep. And the lane was named after him. Okay, so we all know that. So I'm not sure what more history that you need and to sit alongside our history. It's 1891 was the first burial in our cemetery. So that was the year that we actually started using the right-of-way as a pathway to the Urupā, 1891.
And the first burial there, just for history as well, was Wee Parata's wife, Tota. So quite significant. And since then we have continued, in fact, we've even taken Rafari's mother down there on her last journey to Ruaka.
Wow. So I suppose through you, Mr. Chair, the reason I asked this is that you said that council weren't able to find any history on this person. So I suppose I'm just wondering what sort of, if you do need any history on this person, or whether you actually don't.
Yeah, exactly. Good question. That's what I was trying to get at, Jocelyn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that can all be part of once we receive the report. It'll be hopefully part of the officer's report, which will provide us with the balance of the information that they can find, and whoever's on the board at that stage will need to make a decision. Until we get a report, we're actually not able to make a decision, despite the fact that we may wish to.
Yeah.
Tonchi, you've got something to say.
Oh no, Mr. Chair, you've pretty much summed it up, so I'll put my hand down.
So another question through you, Mr. Chair, and maybe Mike will be able to answer this. So we've got some elections coming up. Is it possible that this paper will come to could come to the board in December, or are they going to have to wait until probably in February, when they normally have our first meeting? When there's normally the first meeting for the new triennium.
Kate, have we scheduled meetings for the next triennium yet, or are they yet to be done?
They're yet to be confirmed. They'll be confirmed in the new triennium for the community boards, but I think it's at the end of November.
Yeah, it's tentatively scheduled for the 22nd of November.
Yeah.
Okay.
So given these reports tend to be, whilst there's research required, they tend to be fairly mechanical in nature of the decisions that you need to take. We've looked to get this through as quickly as we could, Councillor.
Thank you, because I know sometimes in that first meeting of a triennium, it's not really accepting any papers, and I'm just wondering whether or not that's potentially could be the case here as well, just so that people's expectations are okay.
So when we met today, just to get an idea, we were assuming that this decision would come across your table, and the follow-up conversation to tonight's submission would come across your table in February. So if it doesn't come through, we're very happy for it to come through earlier, but just if we could have some insight into whatever that date is, that'd be great.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Let's ask a question. Do we have reporters listening into what we're talking about?
I know we've got Jeff Churchman from Waikanae Watch listening in.
Okay, I'm just wary of what might be in the papers, next week or whenever. In regards to our request, and
Unfortunately, it's a public meeting, or a meeting that's open to the public. But I don't think if you can establish a long history and association, then I can't see that there's any issue with having that sort of information in the public arena. But
it's not that I mind, it's what the reporter might report.
I'm sure he'll be very reasonable.
I was just about to say, through you, Mr. Chair, if there is any report that does go out, or if anybody would like to publicly put anything out there, perhaps I'd like to reach out to us and we can share with them some information for them to, or supply them with some information to support their reporting to the community.
Okay.
So just to also highlight the fact that even though there are a number of people listening to this live, this will go on the internet and can be viewed by anyone. Just so you're aware of that.
We are being recorded as we speak.
It's just that, our history has been blurred at times.
Yeah, I understand.
That are writing things down. It's not so much what we say, it's the ink that's the danger. It's the ink. So
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we will progress as we go along.
And we hope to see you all again at the next meeting. So good luck with your elections, all of you. And thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a nice
Richard.
evening.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Alison, for agreeing to step aside. I think we can come back to you and we can discuss car parking changes associated with the Mahara Gallery.
Thank you, and no problem. It was good to let them have their opportunity to speak. So I'll take the report as read if I can, Mr. Chair. But just, I guess, in summary, with the Mahara Gallery being rebuilt, there was a need to also review the landscape plan for around the building, really wanting to improve the pedestrian space and entrance into the new gallery and to provide that public plaza. And in order to do that, we have extended the footpath in front of the building out to where the accessible parks used to be in the Countdown car park area. And the proposal is that the new mobility parks will move slightly west towards the pedestrian crossing, and there's one additional accessibility park. So there were 5 pre-construction and we will be putting in 6, and directly outside the front of the building will be a drop-off zone so people can pull in easily, drop off and pick up, and there will also be appropriate furniture under shelter of the gallery for people waiting to be picked up, and to appreciate that space as they're moving through Mahara Place. They're really just seeking approval for the proposed relocation of the car parks in the front of Mahara Gallery.
Right. Michelle, do you want to go first, being our resident roading expert? Mute. Thank you.
I've got 2 questions. Was there an option considered where you would split the allocation? So I'm just thinking in relation to where they are currently relocated, close to the health centre. Have you interviewed the users to see how whether they wanted them all moved or whether we should have split them between the 2 locations?
I met with the chair of the Disability Advisory Group. And I also, Norma McCullen, who many of you all know, has got quite an interest in the area around disability and mobility parking. And I discussed this with her as well. I didn't specifically ask about splitting it in 2, but I talked them through those spaces and they agreed that that was appropriate. The difficulty would be if we split them because of the size of the parks. We'd probably end up having to do that whole row in accessible parks, or only have 1 or 2 in the middle for standard parking. So it works better to have it in a block.
I guess I'm more focused on the user and the user experience. It would have been my hope that we might have interviewed some of the users of those spaces.
Okay, I take your point. I guess by working with the people that I did, I thought that I was covering that base, but take your point. I could have spoken to other people as well.
What people are you specifically targeting, Michelle?